welcome back to Gowerton Parkway. You join me today for the May 2020 layout update. Now this layout update has taken me a little bit longer to get around to doing than I thought it would, as I've progressed through quite a bit of work on the layout. I've actually tried to film this a couple of times and I've started over, and I basically started over because the progress on the layout's got a lot further than I anticipated it getting. Now before we get into it, I just want to say that I hope everybody's keeping well and staying out of trouble and making the best of the current situation that we're in at the moment with the lockdown, etc. Here in Wales, we're currently still on a solid you can't leave your house, don't do anything lockdown. I know things have been slightly relaxed in England and things are different over there, but we are currently on a don't leave your house, don't do anything unless you're having some exercise kind of rule. So that's led to me staying in the loft for as much time as I possibly can and getting some work done on the model railway. Now, to be able to do the amount of work that I've done on the model railway, I've had to buy quite a few things from various different shops, and I just want to say a quick thank you to the shops that have been keeping our hobby going during this time at the moment with the lockdown and not being able to actually get to a model shop. So I've used various model shops. I've used Hatton's, Frozen Hall Model Railways, Track Shack and the Model Railway Emporium, Roads and Rails, all of which have provided a brilliant service, along with the delivery people at Royal Mail and DPD. So a big thank you to those people that have enabled us to keep our hobby going during these tricky times, and we hope that it all comes to an end soon and that we can get back to the shops and see these people in person and hopefully give our postman a bit of a break. But without further ado, I'll get on with the layout update and you can have a look and see all the different work that I've got up to in the last month. The first job that I decided to tackle on the layout was to try and do some more work on this embankment that you see in front of you. Now on the far left hand side you can see I started to have some vegetation put on the near side embankment. Now I've got to be very careful when I do this. I don't want to put too much here because it will cut off my view of trains running along the layout, and obviously the whole purpose of having the model railway realistically is to enjoy watching the trains go by. I don't want to bring in trees up here and have them really high and they'll cut off my view. So what I'm probably going to look to do is around about here start tapering the vegetation down and go for some lower lying stuff here, so it looks like you've got stuff growing on the grass here but you can still look over it and see the trains running by. So the far side is pretty much completed, as you can see. Now earlier on in the month, or towards the tail end of April, I sort of decided that what I would actually do with this embankment is to continue it along the length of the loft into the available space. It previously used to taper down to a flat here, and then right of the camera just off shot was a flat area where you would be able to just see bare baseboard. I hadn't done anything with it and I was trying to think what I could put in that area. I took the decision to actually extend the embankment all the way down the length of the track as far as possible, and I did this basically because it gives a nice imposing backdrop for the trains to run in front of. That little patch of flat land was giving me some trouble. I wasn't quite sure what to put there. I didn't want to put a building there or anything. I didn't just want to have a flat field or whatever, so I've extended the embankment down the full length of this piece of track and I think it looks quite good. I'd say that embankment there is probably about 7 foot long now, so you've got a nice 7 foot run of a train sitting in front of that embankment, and it'll provide some nice backdrops for running shots and photography, which I do enjoy doing on the layout. So that pretty much is that area. This was all done using my usual technique of getting polystyrene sheeting. I then plaster over the top of that with plaster cloth, paint it, put down various scatters and then put down my vegetation. There's another area on the layout that I still need to complete that for. I can pretty much look at doing a tutorial on that if people are interested. Again, this is something you need to let me know as to whether you want me to do it or not. The way that I tend to make my videos is to do the work and then show people what I've done. I'm not one for overly doing tutorials or going through a blow-by-blow, step-by-step guide for everything I do. There's other channels out there that do that and they cover it better than I will. So if there's anything in particular that I've done that you'd like to know how I've done, let me know and I can make a video on it. But otherwise, I'll just continue with these videos as we are now and just showing you what I've done as and when I've done it and keeping you up to date with my model railway. the area that I have behind the engine shed. I started to add more detail to. There's a few of these little clamp tube style fences that have gone up which needed to go into place. They're the scale model scenery kit that everybody seems to use. Really good product, really easy to use, and it's no wonder that they're so popular. I've added various little bits and pieces and jiggled things around. I think one of the things that the layout really lacks at the moment is a lot of figures. I need to get quite a lot of people out and about on the layout, and I started to add these around the traction maintenance depot now. You got this little guy here pushing a wheelie bin, this guy looking into the window of his rail track van to see if he's left his mobile phone in there, and then you got this guy stood over here by these pallets wondering if he can find a spare piece of whatever he needs to fix, whatever it is he needs to fix. So I think that adds a little bit more life, adding people. You'll see that I've moved some of the scenery around here, and I'm quite happy with this. I've started to glue down the bits and pieces because I'm forever knocking them over. I've added across now the Roy buffer stops. I can't remember if they were there or not in the last video, but these are the Acura scale Roy buffer stops. I've added those. I think they're definitely the best solution on the concrete hard standing. They look modern. They're absolutely brilliant models, really easy to use. They're designed for code 75 track, code 100 track. They're just such a versatile, awesome bit of kit, so I'd recommend those to anybody. I've put those on there, and I think they really add a nice sort of backdrop or end to the track for running the locomotives up to, provide a good sort of modern effect as well. So that's pretty much everything that's happened with the traction maintenance depot. I'll have a quick little pan there, and you can see some vegetation gone up against the gate there just to try and tie it in. One of the main jobs that I need to get done next is to sort out this patch of land here. This is all sort of weird nothingness at the moment, so that'll get grassed over, and I'll add some scrub and bushes there just to try and finish that off. But I think as a whole that area looks quite nice, and the embankment running behind it really does give a good backdrop, I think, to the what I would call the working end of the traction maintenance depot. Okay, so in front of you now you can see a new addition to the layout, which is something that I've purchased just recently. It's a steam loco, shock horror. I wanted something to pull my Mark 1 coaches, and to be honest with you, as far as steam engines go, I don't really like Western stuff. It's all the rage in this area of the country. Everybody seems to model Great Western rubbish, and it's just quite boring. So I decided what I wanted was a nice big A4 Pacific, and the one that fit the bill was number 60009, Union of South Africa. Now this locomotive was running on the main line in the period that I model, and it's still running on the main line now. It's a steam loco that's had a good long mainline career, and it's had a good long mainline preservation career. So this model, when I purchased it, it was the Hornby Commonwealth edition, so it's not one of the ones that have come out of the Great Gathering or Great Goodbye pack. I've had to do a couple of modifications of it to get it just right. I've removed the nameplates, added the correct red style ones, and I've added the overhead warning patches on there. But I think overall it's quite a nice loco. It's just sat on the depot at the moment while I wait to move it off somewhere to decide what to do with it. Like I said, you'll probably see this in future running videos, pulling the Mark 1 coach in stock. I think it makes a nice addition. I guess everyone needs to have at least one steam loco. That's it, I've got one now. I don't need to do it again. I won't buy any more, honest. So that moves us on to another new addition to the layout. Now, my last video was a full in-depth review of the Hatton's Class 66, which appeared to cause quite a stir on various different channels and forums, etc. Now, the idea of that video wasn't to be controversial, it was to be honest, and I mentioned at the end of that video I'd be buying another Hatton's Class 66, and I have, and here it is. This one was pretty good, to be honest, coming out of the box, no faults with it, etc. It did develop the usual issue of chucking off axle boxes, and I lost one of those, but I got in touch with Hatton's regarding that, and they actually have now got stock of spare axle boxes. I think they know it's a little bit of an issue, and they just popped some out into the post for me free of charge. It was really good. I've got spare axle boxes now, so really happy with this loco. I've weathered it all up. I think I've got quite a decent finish on it now. One of the things I do need to do is go back to it and add a driver, etc. in there. This has again been fitted with a V5 chip and EM2 speaker supplied by Roads and Rails, and it really finishes off the locomotive nicely. you'll be able to see this running on the layout on all sorts of various different freight. I think it's important to have a couple of EWS Class 66s, as they really are the ubiquitous freight locomotive of the last 20 odd years now. So yeah, we need those on the layout, and I probably will look to get another one at some point, but for the moment that'll do me. I've got that, and I've got the other pair that you've already seen in the previous video, and that'll keep me going for now. So over on this corner of the layout, we've seen absolutely no progress at all. I haven't touched this area of the layout. It was in a pretty complete-ish state, barring the hill over the back. This is the hill that I mentioned a little bit earlier on in the video that still needs doing. I'm going to attack that with my usual method as previously described and get that finished. I'm thinking with that area of the layout, again, I'm just going to go for some sort of rough, hilly backdrop. I'm not going to try and put any funky scenery on top of it. I don't really see the point in it, but that's that. And then there's not really anything else to report there, other than that I've now got my Amazon Fire Stick fired up on my TV, which has been doing nothing for a good 3 years, and I can sit and do some really cranky live train spotting in York Station we're looking at the moment. So yeah, that's really exciting and tells you just how sad I am. So one of the main areas of focus that I've been working on over the last month or so is to actually get the train station into a state that I was happy with. As I mentioned in the previous video, I was going to look to backdate it, move all the funky modern scenery and canopies and backdate it to something very 1980s and rough looking. So I will just quickly talk you through what I've done here and have a quick pan down the station. So first thing I'll mention to you, the retaining wall at the back that's falling over and looking pretty knackered is going to be removed and replaced. I've got to build a new retaining wall for that. These ones have been on here since the layout started in 2013, so they've done their bit and they're well and truly past it now, so they need redoing. I'll just talk you through the changes that I've made to the actual platforms themselves. So they were all stripped back, they've been repainted. I've applied the new yellow little don't step over this line, yellow line on the edge of the platforms. That's the scale model scenery self-adhesive ones, and I've scratch built these canopies that run down the length of the platform. So the canopy on the far side is longer than the canopy on the near side. The simple reason for that is, again, not to make sure that I don't cut off too much of the view when observing the platforms from the viewing position. Now, one of the things that I noticed when I was doing my research on these various different stations is that the canopies are all different lengths on different sides of the platform, so it gave me the perfect justification. These have all been scratch built and weathered. My scratch building isn't amazing, but I think these do look a lot better than what was there before, and I think that it really helps backdate the layout to a sort of late 1990s, early 2000s period. They look like they're sort of run down and they've been there for a good while, and it gives a fairly decent impression. So I just pan over to the left hand side here. You will see that we've got the girder bridge just in front of that lorry. Now that's just temporarily tacked on at the moment with blue tack. It needs positioning properly and gluing on into its final position, so that's just temporarily offered up at the moment. And I've got the retaining wall here, which I will move in, and I'll just show you a couple of those details a little bit closer. Okay, so you can see here I've got a nice little retaining wall in there. That's actually a wheels kit made by Pico. It's a plastic kit, goes together fairly easily. It's been painted and then dry brush weathered. Now, one of my worst skills, or things that I'm the most awful at or haven't really quite mastered yet, is dry brushing. So I am quite pleased with the finish I've managed to get on this. It took me quite a long while to do, but I've put that kit together and it looks quite good. This was really a bugbear, this area of the layout for me before. The road used to disappear off into a little tunnel, and the tunnel looked really naff, and it was just awful. So I'm glad to have got rid of that. Now, this has been sort of quite harshly lopped off here. You can see it sort of goes to the edge of the baseboard. I will make a proper fascia there just to tidy that edge up, but for the moment that is the way it is. Everything that you see in this video is totally a work in progress, so it still needs working on. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do as well was have a little look at trying to get some sort of cameo in. Now, I was struggling for ideas of what to put at this end. I wanted the road to just sort of peter out, and I was by chance sat watching Countryfile and they were having a good old whinge about fly tipping, and I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. I'll do some fly tipping on the layout. So I've got this horrible little man here, and he's fly tipped a load of his junk out the back of his van. There's going to be a load more junk added to this. I need to get it sorted out. I want to get some black bin bags, etc. But I thought this sort of end of lane is the kind of place that you'd find stuff fly tipped. So that's what I've done. Made a little cameo there, and I will just quickly show you pan down the road the progress I've made on that as well. So this is the current view as you look from left to right down the length of the station, and you can see the road that runs down to what is the locomotive stabling point. I've started to get everything blended in there with that. It's all been edged with sand at the moment, and that's been glued into place. That's just really to give a sort of rough edge, and I will look to paint that. One of my absolute favourite ground coverings for doing model railways is just to use sand. It provides a really, really good generic ground cover. You can paint it, you can wash it, and it just comes out really nicely. So that's what I've got down the edges of the road at the moment, and that pretty much concludes that area of the layout for you. This, as I mentioned, is that concrete patch stuff that I've used. That's just had a light wash and been sanded back and created a sort of patchy, faded-y type kind of effect, and I'm really pleased with the way that looks. It looks like a kind of unloved old road, and yeah, I'm pleased with the way that's looking. I think one of my next major areas of focus is going to be to do some proper work on the locomotive stabling point, get some good detailing done there, and see where we go from that point. So the next area of the layout that we're going to look at, and one that's taken up a hell of a lot of time, has been the town scene that I've started to build. As you can see in front of you, this has started to come together as per the plans I outlined in a drawing on a previous video. Now, I've created this using the concrete patch that I used to create the roads elsewhere and the hard standing elsewhere on the layout. I've got to be honest with you, that's a pretty tough way to do it. If I was going to do this again, I would definitely think twice about using the concrete patch, as it required a hell of a lot of work to get right. But once you get there, it does look good. Now, the curbstones that I've got here, they're created from 1.5mm squared plasticard strips and just bent to shape. They were all super glued down, and then I just backfilled the areas where the pavement was going to be, and yeah, that's pretty much how that came about. But there was so much sanding and filling and sanding and filling and sanding and filling involved. It was absolutely incredible. It was a mammoth undertaking. This is all concrete patch underneath here, and that helps give the texture of the road. But you can see that it's been, you know, the results are pretty good, but my god, it was such a tough job to get right. And I'm glad I've only got a small town scene, because I think I would have absolutely lost my head if I had to do anything bigger than what I have done. The roads themselves, they've been painted using various greys out of different match pots from Wicks. I've mixed them together to get different colours. I've then gone over and dry brushed various areas to help bring out the texture in the road, and I think that's come out quite well. What I'll do now, I'll just get in a little bit closer to the road so you can see exactly the different textures that are coming through. Probably not that easy to see from this distance, but before we do that, I'll just explain the road markings. The road markings are scale model scenery self-adhesive road markings. They're pretty good. They've gone down quite nicely. A couple of them have started to peel up in places, but what I think I'm going to do is give it a nice little layer of varnish just to hold it all down and make sure it stays in place. I've done a little test patch on this area here. I've put down some Testors dull coat to see if it had any weird effects with the paint or the road marking, and it all seems to look fine. So I'm going to go over everything, varnish it, and get everything sealed in, and hopefully that'll help everything stick down and protect everything and give me the final coat that I need. So hopefully this angle provides you with just a little bit more insight as to the texture that you can actually see when you look close up to it, and it also gives you a bit more perspective of how high these curbstones are. So that's pretty good. I'm happy with that. There's still a lot of work to do. On the right hand side here, I need to install a fence that separates the footpath from the drop of doom off the edge of the layout and onto the running lines of the railway, so that needs to go in. But yeah, there's loads to do, and what I do now is just quickly pan over to the station building and talk you through that. On this part of the layout, you may have been expecting to see a beautifully handcrafted scratch-built building representing Neath Station. You'll notice in front of you there is not that at all, and in fact it's a Bachmann ready-to-plonk building. Yes, I decided to cheat and buy a ready-to-plant building. There was one main reason for that, and that was basically the time that it was going to take me to build the station building that represents Neath. I know we've got a lot of time on our hands at the moment, but it's a job that I would have ended up putting back and putting back and putting back, and it would have held me back with doing the town scene and held me back with rebuilding the station, and I really wanted to crack on with it and get it going. So I cheated and I bought this station, and whilst I know it's a bit of a cop out and I hold my hands up to that, I do think it does the job quite nicely. It should blend in really well once I've put all my little pieces of street furniture, signage and some scratch built items around it. It should blend in quite nicely. And yeah, sorry, it was going to be a scratch built building. There's no saying that it won't get around to being done in the future, but at the moment this is what it's going to be, and that's the way it's going to stay. I have branded all the front of the station with Gowerton Parkway signage, and I do think that this is a hell of a lot better than what was previously in place. I think it really helps backdate the era of the layout, and it just ties in a lot more. It represents a parkway station a lot better than what was there before. The previous station, I think, was sort of had echoes of a big town, big city station, and this station really isn't that at all. It's supposed to be on the edge of a town, and it's a parkway station that people will get off at to then go into town on other transport. So I think it's okay. It does the job. It looks quite good, and it's helping to create the atmosphere I want to create. As I mentioned, there's a lot more work to do on the town scene. There's street lights, etc. Everything's got to go on to this yet, so bear with me on it. This is early knock-ins, and I think that looks okay. So I'll just have a quick pan around the rest of the town scene for you. There's a lot of work still to be done with this. Paint needs touching up on the road, etc. And I need to finish painting the curbstones, etc. here, and I need to think of something interesting to put here. I might put like a little row of trees or something just to add a bit of interest to this sort of wide expanse of concrete pathing. And then here the plan remains the same. I'm going to have my used car dealership. We're going to have a really dodgy old car dealership in there, and I've still got to do that. There's no ground covering gone down on that at the moment, and the reason for that is I'm not going to be using the concrete patch for this. I'm going to have to come up with something else, so I'm going to sort of create a rough covering, and yeah, that's a job that will probably be quite a way down the line before I get that done. One of the other things you may notice with the town scene is I have actually put a blue backdrop just to try and clean up the finish a bit. Previously there wasn't anything here and it looked a bit stupid, so I thought I'd put that in. But that brings you up to date with the town scene. I've still got lots of work to do. This side is particularly needs a lot of work. One of the only problems with the town scene is it splits into two pieces, and there's a very obvious ridge there in the road. But again, this is a model, it's a model railway, and there's always going to be some sort of compromise that you have to take, and that is that for the town scene. But I think it's coming along okay. I'll just give you a couple of other views of it just so you can get more of an appreciation of exactly where we are. So another part of work that I've carried out has actually been on the Fiddle yard. I've had to make a slight extension to one of the sidings as I've collected some wagons that I haven't really got room for. So over the last month or so, I've collected a load of container wagons, and I managed to get a fairly decent sized rake of these at a good price from the Model Railway Emporium. Now, this siding here, the Fiddle yard, you have to excuse the freehand. This is the easiest way to do it at the moment. This siding here was the shortest siding on the layout. And you can see where it previously used to join there. So you wouldn't get much of a train in there. What I've actually had to do is extend that, and it is now the longest siding on the layout. And this actually runs all the way down here under the area where the workbench is, and joins the main line just in there. It's pretty dark, so you probably can't see it, so we won't spend long in that hole. And yeah, I think that's probably a fairly effective way to expand the sidings. I had a good look around this Fiddle yard, and there was absolutely nowhere else really that I could actually extend, so that was the main option for me, and it's given me now a nice long siding for this container train. This container train is 7 pairs of wagons in total on that, so 14 wagons if you like, and it makes a really nice long train and looks pretty impressive winding its way around the layout. What I'll do, I'm just going to bring the container train out onto the layout and just talk you through a couple of little bits and pieces. Okay, so I've just rolled a portion of the container train out onto the layout for you just so that I can point out a couple of little things that I've done and hopefully give you a couple of little hints for if you've got your own container trains to help with running, etc. Now, these wagons, the container flats, when you get them out of the box, they are completely fluorescent green. They're a really sort of weird, I don't know, it's like a toothpastey green kind of colour, if you will. I don't know what you'd call that, maybe aqua, I don't know. But anyway, they were delivered in that colour. They didn't stay that way for very long. They got absolutely filthy. So I have prototypically weathered mine from pictures. Now, one of the things that you'll notice is none of the containers have actually been weathered. Now, that's a job that I've got to do. I think there's a good probably 20 containers on this train that all need doing, and it's going to be a hell of a long job. So I will gradually get through it and perhaps do maybe one container every couple of weeks for the next 7 years of my life or whatever it may be, and get that completed. But one of the things I wanted to point out to you is these wagons are supplied in the box with a drawbar that runs between the two containers, the container flats, which you can probably see just there. Now, in real life, these container flats ran as pairs and they would always stay as pairs. So the running numbers for those container flats would be for a pair rather than for the individual wagon. Now, one of the things that I found really helpful when getting this up and running was to actually use some of the fixed Bachmann coach couplings between the sets. So this got one of the little pipe couplings just between there. I'll insert a picture in the corner of the type of coupling that I mean, and you'll notice that I found, to be perfectly honest, when I'm running these trains, it's made them a lot more reliable to have it as a fixed solid rake. I found that when there were tension lock couplings between the different sets of wagons, it gave for a little bit too much movement and there would be the odd derailment here and there, and it was quite frustrating. But one of the things that I did, as soon as I added the solid couplings in, it seemed to tighten everything up. There was a lot less slack. It's a really long rake of wagons and they're not that heavy, to be honest, so they are prone to come off the tracks quite easily. But this has helped solve that immeasurably. Touch wood, I don't want to jinx it, I've got this rake of wagons running around the layout now, and I could go off for 3 hours and come back and they'd still be going around perfectly. So that's really pleasing. But I just wanted to share that with you, and to be honest, that is pretty much it for the video, and I'll close up for you now. So that brings the May layout update to a conclusion. I hope you found it enjoyable and it's given you some sort of insight as to where I am with my work on the layout at the moment. I hope to get some more work done on the station area and the town scene over the next few weeks. So as soon as there's anything significant to report, I will come back to you. As always, I'm going to be looking to develop the layout and add more detail on it and get it looking better than it is at the moment. The main goal really is to get this all completed for when our lockdown is finally lifted, as Hornby Magazine are going to come back and do a follow-up article on the layout following the previous article that was out years ago, and I want to make sure that when that article comes out, it's something that I can be really proud of, and that people will look at the pictures and think, yeah, that's a decent layout, and hopefully be able to see that I've developed as a modeler since the previous issue came out. In any case, if there's anything that you would like to see on the layout, or anything that you'd like me to talk through how I do, please just let me know and I'll try and make a video for you explaining it. As I said, my layout really, and my channel, my videos, I just describe what I've done and show people progress, and hopefully they will get something from that and learn the odd bits and pieces along the way. But if there is something specific I can help you with, please just let me know and I will endeavour to help with that. Now, one of the things that I do want to do in the future is get a decent running session filmed and put up. I'm conscious that I don't have very many running videos, or any running videos really. It's just the odd clip here and there. Now, one of the primary reasons for that is that my controller is on my phone, and I use my phone for filming these videos. Now, one of the things that I am potentially looking to do over the course of the next few months is possibly looking to actually getting a proper video camera to make these videos. It would enable me then to be able to take some decent footage of trains running, improve the quality of these updates, and if I go off out and about to diesel gardens and whatever, take some decent footage of that and share that with you, which is something I'd like to do. So I'm on the lookout for a decent, reasonably priced camera, and I will possibly get that done in the future. But for the time being, keep safe, keep modeling. I hope everybody's having making the best they can out of the current situation, and we will speak to you soon. Cheers and thanks very much.